today about my conversation, and it's going to be an interesting one because it's going to go into the psychology of marketing and creativity when it comes to marketing. And I have an expert marketing guest on today that we're going to talk to about it. He's from Kexino Marketing, and we're going to just kind of dig into a little bit about how he views marketing, why he views it this way, what his experience is like in marketing, and how it has shaped many bigger and smaller companies alike, and the nature of the marketing space. But before we go into the podcast, to the show today, just want to remind you of a couple of things, a few housekeeping notes that we have business resources up on our Common Sense podcast website. So if you go to thecommonsensepodcast.com/resources, you're going to see Micah's library on there. You're going to see business resources to help you to manage your business, your small business, and to help it continue to grow and scale. Things that you can use to not just use for like signage and collateral and things like that, but also the ability to get your website started and some other awesome tools as well. So take a look at the business resources page, and also make sure you buy some of those books that I suggest so that you can try to get your level up your knowledge as well as your experience. But before we get into the show, I'm Micah Logan. This is the Common Sense Show.
You're listening to the Common Sense Show. If you've just started a new business, or if you're just thinking about it, this podcast is for you. Micah Logan has a stellar track record coaching small businesses to achieve six-figure revenue streams. The advice on this show is what has allowed him to have over 15 years of experience as an entrepreneur. Here is your host, Micah Logan.
Welcome to the Common Sense Show, and I'm excited for my guest today. He is Ranasinha. He is the CEO of Kexino, marketing. And he specializes in working with startups and small businesses. And he has in this role for the past 14 years. But more than that, he is a Sage Top 100 Business Influencers of 2017. And a Sage, that just sounds like something very,
mystical, right?
Yeah, something that I think I want to know more about. He's also one of the top digital marketing agencies in 2019. He is extensively quoted in the media for his expertise. He's been in marketing for over 25 years. He's run full service agencies. His clients include Sony, Timberland, Adobe, UNESCO. I mean, this guy is the real deal. G, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Micah. I'm very pleased to be here. What a great intro. I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, you did it all. I just have to tell people about it.
Yeah. That's it. Maybe I need a marketer. What do you think?
Yes, that's right. So one of the things that the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was to talk about your approach to marketing. But before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, what I didn't go into, some of what has shaped your view of marketing, and why you choose to adopt the method you do, and kind of what made you become you?
Well, I've been in marketing now for, like I said, 25 odd years. Back in the days of dial-up modems and AOL CDs. Remember those?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I remember that everyone used to get those discs to their house, the AOL disc.
Right. And you used to get hundreds of them, and you used to use them as drinks coasters, right?
Like every other month they came to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if maybe we used them once, but I can't imagine the enormous expense that it costs AOL to do that.
Crazy times, yeah. So back in those days, well, not quite back in those days, but that's where I started. And then more recently, I was worldwide director of marketing for a software company in Europe. Our clients were people like Time Inc., IKEA, Nestle, Airbus, Marvel Comics, people like that. But every time, as the marketing director, every time we got marketing agencies in to pitch for our business, I felt a disconnect because none of them would take any fiduciary responsibility for the marketing plans that they proposed. So if it all went wrong, they'd wipe their hands and run away. They were more interested in the tactical side of things,
Right.
The web design or ads or events or promotions or that sort of thing, right? Because, social was just taking off at this time. It wasn't really very much social centric. Nobody was asking me about the business results on which the marketing plan needed to deliver, right? Which I thought was crazy. So, it dawned on me that I can't be the only person looking for this kind of agency. There must be a ton of startups and small businesses in particular who were looking for help with marketing from a business perspective rather than tactical. Designing and managing a marketing plan, generating qualified leads, and ultimately putting a plan together that actually made a commercial difference to the business. So I gave up my cocooned existence in the corporate world with my expense accounts and company BMWs and international flights and all that sort of good stuff.
Who needs that stuff anyways?
Yeah, exactly. Who needs that stuff? And we started Kexino in January 2008. 2008, which you'll remember, was not exactly the best time to start a business of any kind, let alone a marketing agency.
Well,
but with a bit of crossed fingers and a following wind and some very, very supportive clients in the early days, we weathered the storm and we came out the other end. And today we're 19 people in 9 countries. 9 of us are in the US. The rest are in Europe, South Africa, and I have 2 people in Australia as well. Our clients are primarily in the US. Probably 85% of our clients are in North America rather than US.
Right.
Don't want to upset those guys north of the border. And
although they won't yell at you, they'll just be very polite and
they'll be very polite,
mildly irritated away.
Yeah. It's primarily North America, a little bit in Europe. Otherwise, the rest is Southeast Asia, China, Japan, South Korea, doing a lot of stuff with those guys, primarily in the tech space, as you can imagine.
Right.
And that's us.
Something that you said earlier about why, or one of the predicates to you jumping from your corporate comforts to starting your own thing, was about marketing firms not taking fiduciary responsibility in their marketing. Do you consider that to be an ethical issue?
Yeah, I think so. I think anything other than that is a bait and switch game, really. I mean, why do we do this, right? Why does any business invest in marketing? To move the needle, to generate sales, right? If it doesn't generate sales, it's not marketing. It's fluff. It's ego. It's just nonsense, right? So if there isn't something that can be put together which actually makes a tangible, quantifiable difference to the business bottom line, that is marketing. Anything else, if it doesn't make a difference, long or short term, then you're just wasting your money. And there are plenty of agencies out there of all sizes, from one-man bands to fairly decent-sized agencies, who will just jump straight into the tactical execution, right? They don't even want to know about the business concerns, the market dynamics, the customer backgrounds, the trading environment. They just want to get straight into, I don't know, doing a new website or spending money on Facebook ads or doing whatever. And they won't actually look and take the time to understand what makes sense for that business, what makes sense for both existing and prospective customers of that business, you know.
Yeah.
And they've got a set of tools,
Mhm.
a finite set of tools, and they're trying to fit things in the wrong way around, right? So they've got these tools, and they're trying to. Have you heard of Maslow's hammer, the law of the instrument? You may know it as if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
I have. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So,
Or essentially the theory that the hammer is searching for a nail to hit, or basically.
right, exactly, because that's all you've got, right?
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why we had to become a full service agency rather than specializing in branding or design or SEO or CRO or whatever else, because if you break these things down into the component parts, they don't actually work. You can't separate marketing disciplines across multiple providers, especially if you're a smaller business, because you don't have the wherewithal or the experience or the presence to be able to hold all of those sorts of things together. So this is the reason why it has to be, all of this stuff has to be driven from
All right. Sorry for a little bit of the bumpy video here, but G, you were just talking about how marketing firms need to explore this comprehensive service offering in order to fully satisfy a business's needs or a client's needs. If you can continue on that.
Right. Yeah. So Maslow's hammer, right? Hammers and nails. Hammers looking for nails. Okay. Right. If all you do is web design, then somebody comes to you looking for a marketing solution, you're going to turn the conversation around to web design.
Right.
Right. Because that's what you do. Right. But web design may not be the most pressing need for that client at that particular time.
Right.
It may be something else. And this is the problem when you specialize in something where the recipe list for what may work for that client is at the beginning unknown.
Right.
At the beginning, you have to do your research, you have to do your homework and work out what that recipe list looks like, what that checklist looks like,
right,
and then craft together a marketing plan accordingly.
Right. This, I have a lot to say about this actually, but I want to start with Michael Gerber's quote about this is really the genius of the E-Myth, isn't it? Where he talked about how the fatal assumption in business is that because you can do the technical work, you think that you can be a business owner. And I think that this specifically, he was referring to the fact that you think you can go on your own and run a business. However, it does apply in what you're talking about, in the sense that you may have been a web designer as a part of an overall marketing company at a firm, and you did excellent things. And so you go out on your own because you feel like you want to be your own boss, which, by the way, is a terrible reason to go out on your own. There has to be more than that. But really, there needs to be a legitimate business reason that's recognized why there's a new website even built. There should also be a legitimate business reason why the website looks, feels, or interacts how it does. And you need to be able to interpret what happens after the intent on the website is satisfied. But in order to do that, you need to have some business strategy with that. It's not just about the web design or building the website. So I agree completely with what you're saying. And I think that this is part of the reason why a lot of smaller independents have a hard time actually generating the revenue that they want to generate, mainly because the people who are looking for web design don't even understand until they have maybe a conversation with a consultant or a business coach that a website design is just part of their issue and not their whole issue. And the person can only satisfy that job. And so they may be looking for or overlooking these firms that only do that one thing. And, I think that the website design is great, but being a firm that only has the ability to do website design, it's like a super niche versus just a niche, right? In my opinion, you're not going to be able to generate enough money. So it's like, okay, you're a surgeon who does brain surgery only on children who have a special condition, right?
That's left-handed.
Like left-handed. So that's a super niche. And by the way, there's only 26,000 of these kids in the world.
I agree with you up to a point. I'd sort of come back and unpack a couple of things with that. Firstly, the problem, I don't know if you can call it a problem, with the way the world is today is that we all have the tools, the wherewithal, the connections. We were talking about internet connections just now, right? We have the capabilities to build and run a business, right? Cheaply, or say cost effectively, and easier and faster than ever before in human times, right? And that's a good thing, but it's also an extremely bad thing, because there are people who start businesses who should be kept well away from a P&L statement, right, who should be kept well away from a balance sheet because they haven't got a clue. Right. And I think unless you can understand business, you can't understand marketing. I think unless you've been in sales at some point in time, I don't think you can understand marketing. But that's another thing to unpack.
Right.
But also, I think what's key was what you mentioned is that if you're being approached, since we're talking about web design here, if you're a web design agency and you're approached by a client saying, hello, I would like a new website, the first question shouldn't be, what's your budget?
Right.
When do you need it delivered? It should be, why do you need a website?
Correct.
Right? What itch do you need to scratch which is not being fulfilled by the website that you have today?
Right.
Okay. And they'll say, oh yes, well, it's not converting, or we're not getting any leads from it, or, well, same thing, right? Or whatever. And then what will inevitably happen 9 times out of 10 is that the client will get a brand new spanking new website which looks fantastic and has got all of these things flying around and it's all looking great, wonderful, but it still doesn't convert.
Correct.
Right. So they spent a ton of money which they probably would rather use on something else, and are still in the same position. Why? Because their existing website was probably okay. I mean, okay, sure, any website can be a bit better, right?
Right.
But it was probably okay. But the reason why it didn't work is because nobody's looking at the copy, right? No one's spending any time on copywriting, any times on looking at visitors through funnels, doing any research on landing pages, and actually looking to convert the customer through a series of pages, right? Inevitably, the copy on the website is something that's been thrown around in a Google Doc going from one person to another person over the last few years. Maybe it's been used in a previous version of the website. Maybe it's in the company brochure. Nobody gives it very much of a thought. There's no meat in the sandwich. So all you're going to do is give them, a better looking sandwich, but there's still nothing inside. And especially smaller agencies are reluctant to ask these questions because they're just grateful for the business or the potential business, right?
Or scared that they're going to lose the business.
Sure. But do you want that kind of business? Do you want just to do pretty pictures that don't convert? If it doesn't convert, it's not marketing, it's art, right? I mean, put it in a gallery or something, because it doesn't have a there's no commercial result due at the end game of the website, right? So what's the point of it?
That's totally correct. And this has really been one of my pet peeves for a long time, which is that nobody stops and asks why, because why is answering that question, why, is a lot of work. And when you ask why, you're often going to get the answer, well, it's because this is what I was told by this person, or what I observed from that person, or what I think is supposed to happen. There's often no real contextual reason that's actually logical why a person wants to redesign their website, or, as an example, or engage in some specific form of marketing. It's often always because a person had read something that someone wrote. They haven't tested it out scientifically in their own business. There's no empirical data.
They listen to a podcast.
They listen to a podcast like this, two knuckleheads like us.
Yeah.
And they say to themselves, oh, well, this seemed like this worked in my arena here, or this $3 million, graphic design firm did this. So obviously this particular procedure works. But just because you're a graphic design firm here doesn't mean that your firm is the same as a firm that does graphic design there. And like, there are a million reasons why. And we can always talk about that. But why do you think that? Oh, I guess we talked about it, that these firms don't ask why because they don't really want to dig into the stuff that actually takes time to do. Do you think it's because they haven't structured their business in a way to address getting paid, or even like putting themselves in positions to understand this piece? Does it all come down to the business sense and the ability to understand business functions?
You could have cut that sentence way earlier, Micah. They haven't structured their business, period. Right? There is no structure.
Right.
Yes, there's the fear of losing the client by asking too many questions, but also I think you also have to look at it from the client's perspective. Okay. Why is the client suggesting to you that they need a website?
Right.
Okay. Since is the client an experienced marketing person? Probably not.
Right.
So they have self-diagnosed the problem. They think the problem is a new website.
Right.
And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. Just, many times we will get inquiries from businesses of all sizes and saying, okay, can you tell me, I need a price for a website and a this and a that, and they go through, it's like a shopping list, right?
Right.
It's bang, 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 bang.
Yep.
And my question is, how have you determined that this list of items is the list of items which is going to actually make a tangible difference to your business? Why do you think, right? Why do you think that these things are going to be right? Right now, and there's many reasons for this, but this whole self-diagnosis side of things, from a client side of things, is very unhealthy. If I go to the doctor, okay, complaining of chest pains, okay, I don't say to the doctor, look, I've got chest pains, can you give me some angina medication? Right? The doctor's going to say, hey, hang on. Who's to say you've got angina?
Right.
Right? The doctor's going to examine me. He's going to ask me about my history. He's going to say, how many bacon sandwiches have you had in the last, 6 months? And all of this sort of stuff. He's going to ask me all of these questions.
Right.
And then he's going to make a diagnosis. And now the diagnosis may well be angina, but it could also be that I had a really spicy meal last night and I've got gas.
Right.
Right. It's like if I go to a mechanic and I say I need a new transmission, well, actually all I need is a new oil, is an oil change. Right. It's not up to me to tell the person who makes a living doing this what they should be doing for me.
Right.
That should be part of their services. That you should be going to them and saying, look, this is my business. This is how it works. These are where we get our customers today. These are how well we convert those customers. This is the after sales. This is the internal business processes. This is all the rats to it. Okay. We're looking to get from here to here within this amount of time. We've got a budget of X. What can you do? That's something that you want to start to work with.
Right.
You come at it from a business perspective. And there is, there's discovery to do. You have to find out more about the industry, the market space the business occupies, the customer profile, the buyer behaviors, all of this sort of stuff, before you can put something together which is, can hold water.
There's a theory that Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School wrote a white paper about with 3 other professors there at Harvard Business School. And I recorded 2 podcasts on this, and the title of the white paper was Marketing Malpractice. And what it talked about was the job that needs to be done. And now maybe you've heard about this before or read or watched it, but essentially what it says is that customers don't go out and seek a product or a service because they are looking specifically for that product or service. They go out and seek products or services because they have a job that they're trying to hire a business to do. And
they have a problem that they need to go away. Right.
They have a
that
problem.
Is the only reason why people buy anything.
That's it. So
I've got a problem. I need to throw some money at it to get the problem to go away.
That's right. That's and it. So they have a 10-inch hole that they need to put into a wall or a desk or something. Who can I hire to put that 10-inch hole in my desk? And so that's why having a different perspective about how we market and what our business actually is, I think, is a critical piece that a lot of business owners and even marketers, to your point, don't really understand. They don't understand the job that needs to be done. And because they don't understand the job that needs to be done, they don't understand why people hire their product or service, or what people hire their product or service to solve or to do, right? And it's more than just as we stipulated with this, kind of hypothetical web design firm. It's more than just a website. And so I'm assuming that it's this rationale that brought you to your conclusion that you needed to be a full service firm and ultimately address the issues of basically solving issues of a business of the day or of the next 5 years. And so you talked about buying emotionally and post-rationalizing your purchase after you bought emotionally. So you analyze your purchase logically, but you buy emotionally. So tell me, how do you address this gap in how people address their marketing program for their company, given that although we buy emotionally, buyer's remorse, which a lot of people are having right now in various arenas, are things that you want to kind of prevent, because actually I think it's worse on your business to have the buyer's remorse than to have bought or paid for a service and then you're like, I'm so glad that I had this, right? Because it actually did solve my problem, and it just happened to solve my problem because I didn't really understand the job to be done either, right? So how do you help people businesses to understand what their job is and to prevent this gap in buying?
I actually think,
I should say.
Okay. Contentious statement here, Micah, perhaps. I think buyer's remorse is a failure of the business to adequately market their product.
Interesting.
Okay. And let me tell you for why.
You can send hate mail to G at no, sorry, I'm joking.
Yeah. I'll get enough hate mail. I don't need any more. So firstly, decisions, even decisions that we think we're taking rationally, we're taking emotionally. Okay. And that's the same whether you're talking B2B or B2C. It doesn't make any difference. Other than in B2B, you have usually more than one decision maker in the process, but otherwise it's the same thing. You're talking human to human. It's the same thing, right? But it's still an emotional purchase, an emotional decision, even if we post-rationalize it. Let me give you an example. I've got a thing about shoes. Okay, I'll hold my hand up. Okay, if I don't know if there's a shoe buyers anonymous, but if there is, I should join. Right. I like a good pair of shoes. Okay, so imagine I'm walking past a store and I'm looking in the shoe store and I see an absolute knock 'em dead pair of shoes. Okay. But I've got sticker shock. The price is like, hang on, is that the price or the serial number? I mean, what's going on here, right? Some crazy price. Okay. So I'll go in and I'll try them on and I'll be seduced by the branding and the atmosphere and the way they take care of you in the store or whatever else. I'll take these shoes home. Okay. And this is, as you point out, where the buyer's remorse can set in, right? I get home and I think, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've spent a gazillion on these pair of shoes. What am I doing? And then you post-rationalize to yourself. You say, yeah, but sure. But, look at the style, look at the shape of the shoe. It's classic. It's so well made. This thing is going to last so much longer than, cheaper pair of shoes. So actually, I've actually saved money because I don't have to buy 3 pairs of cheaper shoes for the 1 pair of shoes that I'm getting now. They're going to be so comfortable. They're going to go with so many things that I wear. And you do this, you convince yourself in your head, right? If it works, you keep the shoes. If it doesn't, you take them back, right? So this presentation as marketers that we're putting together for the articulation of value of the product or service that we're selling isn't just to entice the buyer to make that purchase, but carries on after that purchase, not just from the buyer's remorse side of things, but hopefully to the point of turning that customer into more than just a customer, more than just a repeat customer, but a true advocate of the brand that we're creating. You with me?
I am. So this prompts a question then. Do you think if we were to do a large scale study that we would find less buyer's remorse with legacy products and services than we would with, like impulse buys or newer brands on the marketplace?
I don't think we can be so severe in the dissection between the two categories. It very much depends on how much true branding work has been done by the company concerned. And by say true branding work, I don't mean this nonsense, somebody who stopping a demonstration to give the police officer a Pepsi. I don't mean
right,
nonsense like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean real proper brand building, even to the point of brand purpose, right? I mean, there are plenty of less well-known brands that stand for something, that have some kind of cause that potential buyers can aspire to and have affinity with. Okay. One of the most obvious ones that springs to mind is Patagonia, for example, right? They have very clear stance on particular issues, and they're not for everyone, and the pricing is reflecting the stance that they have. But you're buying into, as Seth Godin would call them, you're buying into their tribe, right? You're buying into this clique of people who think the same, or for people who aspire to think in that direction.
Right. And so you don't think that the legacy part of the brand has as much of an impact on how people view the value of their product versus, assuming the more legacy a product or service is, theoretically, there should be more marketplace value in the sense of comfort and stability, traditionality, things like that. One would assume. You think do you think that's more wrapped up with how the brand publicly presents its public messaging versus how long and trusted this brand has been in the marketplace?
I think longevity plays a part. Of course it does, and especially for consumer goods. Okay. Right. You know, for somebody like Coca-Cola, right, it's hard to imagine something that company could do that immediately afterwards, or certainly within a few weeks, would bounce back the sales that they'd lost from that particular event.
Right.
Okay. Because they're too big and they've invested too much in the brand building and sales activation mix for it to have any long-term detrimental effect. Okay. The trick is to have a mix. Okay. So long-term brand building and sales activation. So sales activation, if we think about, the types of ads that we see on social media at the moment, buy one, get one free, put this code in, offer expires tomorrow, buy this set of saucepans, kitchen knives, whatever. Okay. That can work, but obviously you're on a, you've got the law of diminishing returns in that, because once you've got a target audience selected, you're cannibalizing that target audience each time and marketing to a smaller and smaller group. And if they don't have an awareness of your brand in the first place, the first question is, well, who are these guys? Can I trust them? And all the usual sorts of doubts that come into the buyer's mind.
Right.
On the other side, you've got the brand building stuff, which isn't a sales activation thing. There's no call to action in the same way. But over time, by exposing the brand to exposure from the group as a whole, not targeted, the group as a whole. If you imagine the sales activation graph, right, you'd say, okay, I'm spending some money on sales activation, sales go up, and as soon as I turn the money off, sales go down, right? So it goes up like that. It's like a sawtooth, I suppose. Okay,
right.
What happens is, when in the background you have brand building going on at the same time, over time, each time you spend money on sales activation and the graph goes up, when it comes down, it doesn't come down as far down as it did before.
Right.
Okay. There's a little bit of a gap. So over time, the effectiveness of that sales activation process goes up, because people are more, they've been exposed to the brand indirectly, not from a sales activation perspective.
Right.
So there has to be a mix between the two. What happens, especially with the small companies or even startups, because they have revenue drivers, they put all of their eggs in one basket and go hell for leather on the sales activation side. And then all they're doing is repeating that process week by week, month by month, year by year, and getting smaller and smaller results over time.
Right.
Because every time it comes back down to that zero position. There's no longer term growth in the effectiveness of that sales activation side of things.
Is that the value play then in the marketplace? Is that
you could
is
say
that how
so,
you close the gap essentially?
Essentially, yeah. I think you can call it that. Once people are aware of you as the brand and how the problem that you fix and how you fix it, whatever product or service you're selling, there's that general sphere of awareness is already present.
Yeah. Well, and this is the issue that companies run into with pricing, which is that let's use your illustration about the sales activation and then how it drops. Well, their first thought is that the reason why it drops is because people are no longer interested in the price. They misassume or misunderstand that drop as perhaps being that my pricing is wrong in the marketplace versus I haven't established my value in the marketplace in order to get people to know, like, and trust me so that they come back again and they want to re-engage with my product or service. So why do you think that small businesses, fledgling entrepreneurs, or even mid-sized companies get pricing so wrong, and even big companies, frankly. There's plenty of products that we can talk about that were fantastic failures from companies because they got pricing wrong. Why is there always this gap in how the company sees how the pricing should play and what the public actually views where this product or service should be?
There's two answers to that. Firstly, if you're not selling because of price, it's probably a marketing problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the perception is that the price is too high, then you have failed at your marketing. You have not given the potential buyer the value communication to articulate the value, the differentiation, the distinctiveness of the product or service to the point where they see the value, because you've got price and you've got value, right?
Correct.
That's the seesaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
So price is what you set, right? The value is in the customer's mind.
That's right. All perception.
So if you're trying to sell me a widget for X amount of money and I don't think it's worth it, you have failed in articulating your value. I think especially with smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, but this is endemic within the sales industry as well, Micah, okay?
Mm-hmm.
People, because they know how much something costs, and because they're too often working on the assumption of a cost plus X% to come to the retail price of whatever they're selling, they're instantly discounting even before they've even finished articulating what the actual product or service does. Okay?
Right.
They're begging for the sale. They're not selling, actually. They're taking orders.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you go to a fast food restaurant, you order a burger, fries, and a milkshake, right? The person who's taking your order at the till, they're not a salesperson, are they? Right? They're an order taker.
Right.
Right. So there's no selling involved. Right.
Do new businesses,
the selling has been done upstream, if you like.
Do new businesses have to get to value before they get to price? And let me just explain that question, because they don't have the margin at the beginning oftentimes, because they're so far downstream in the supply chain that their margins are just going to be they're going to be out of whack until they get a real cost basis for creating a product, right? So until they get real scalability with manufacturing, or they get further upstream on the supply chain and they can put together raw materials themselves and make things cheaper, their margins are just going to be ridiculous. So are we doing the wrong thing in the wrong order? Because this is not what is being taught, right? You go to a marketing firm now, you have to spend the money now and focus on, pay-per-click, or focus on doing this. And then there's not a de-emphasis, but just no emphasis really on creating value about what you do and the perception of what you do in the marketplace of your product or service. Be like super early into what you're offering, to your public offering, so that people can actually get there with you. And they're willing to pay the price because of their perception for now. And then they'll be pleasantly surprised if it drops because your margins increase. Or if you're a service, you can typically drive your margins down a little bit more. But I wanted to just kind of throw that out there. Do you think that we're getting to the value too late in businesses?
Definitely. And I think also people are looking at the pricing equation and automatically assuming that they're too high when maybe they're to be too low.
Right.
Expectations go both ways.
That's right. 100%.
Right.
Yep.
And it's not a given. The thing is, salespeople don't realize that. They see, okay, the product costs $100. We make it for $40. That means I can knock off $10 of the end price. And because I feel bad about the retained margin within that, for example.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of buying perspective, absolutely, because otherwise you're a commodity. And unless you can convey and adequately articulate the value of your product or service, you're just another widget seller, right? And then what happens if there's no differentiation, there's no distinctiveness, there's no reason why I should buy your widget as opposed to somebody else's, then it comes down to a question of price.
Right.
Right. And so then you're on a downward spiral, right? Because I don't care what you do, I don't care what you sell, right? There is always somebody somewhere who'll sell it for less.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Just
Go to
Alibaba.
You don't want to. That's a race that you don't want to win, right?
No. The race. What they call it, the race to the bottom. I once heard someone say, you can't be the cheapest and the best at the same time. It's like, if you're claiming in the marketplace that you're the best, hands down, the absolute best. If I say to you, the best heart surgeon, the best neurosurgeon, if I say to you, the best pilot, the best engineer, the best firm, and you went to them and they say, well, we charge $11.75 an hour. Like, your perception of the value of the best and what they're charging, if that is so drastically different, you are committing, business suicide right there.
Why does a Ferrari cost $150,000? Right? If you took a Ferrari up, I'm not singling out a Ferrari, okay? Pick the dream sports car that you prefer, okay? If you take the whole thing apart and you add up the cost of each nut and bolt and thing, it doesn't add up to $150,000, does it?
No.
It doesn't come anywhere close.
Not even close, yeah.
Right. Okay. So the difference between the cost and what you've paid is the dream that you've been sold.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And that's the differentiation. That is the distinctiveness from the reasons why people buy a Ferrari versus a Porsche versus a Lamborghini versus a whatever else. Okay, and it's the same for everything else. But to put your point about being the best, okay, anybody who says that they're the best, they're not the best. If you have to say that you're the best, you're not the best.
Right. That's right.
Right. That's what other people say about you. You don't say that about yourself.
I've often wondered if the shame that some people feel, because maybe it's not public shame. Maybe it is. I don't know. But let's just call it what it is. When people go to McDonald's, right? McDonald's has never claimed to be a health food chain ever. But there's there's the comedians make jokes about them, specifically Jim Gaffigan, about McDonald's and then the shame of eating there and all this other stuff, right? It's funny to me that because McDonald's is so low priced, in theory, a lower price compared to other places that you can eat, I wonder if the value, the price of the meal is part of the shame people feel in eating it because it's cheap, because it's fast. I wonder if it not just what they're eating, right? Because you can go to a place to get a burger and a fry, and nobody condemns you for eating the burger and fry at a different place other than McDonald's.
Absolutely.
Is it because of the price of the meal and how fast you get it, that the perception of people's mind is that it's cheap? And because it's cheap, it's lower status. Because it's lower status, you should feel guilty if you're eating it.
I think it's also the ubiquity. You go to any major or minor conurbation anywhere on planet Earth, you will come across a McDonald's, right? And you can say the same thing about Starbucks or a number of other types of establishments as well. Okay, but it's the ubiquity. But also, I think McDonald's has done a fantastic branding job in terms of consistency. Because if you're stuck somewhere, the brand of McDonald's, rather than some unknown burger joint dive that you've never heard of that seems to be around the corner and the only one that's open at 2 a.m. When you need to have something. The brand promise that McDonald's is offering is you're going to have something that you know the taste of. Wherever in the world that you are, okay? You know that coffee is going to come in a certain sized cup. It's going to be piping hot, nuclear hot, right? Yeah. And it's going to taste at a certain threshold level. You know that the bathrooms are going to be
moderately clean.
Moderately clean, depending on what time the last signature was on the back of the door, okay? So the expectation level has been set. Okay. So I think that's a very powerful thing. And this is really what branding is all about. Branding is all about an insurance about buying sucky products.
Right.
Okay. Sucky is a technical term there, Micah, just to let you know. Okay. Right. So to give you an example, supposing I was in the market, I mean, we got Black Friday coming up, right? So maybe I'm in the market for a new TV. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm looking at all the specs of the TVs and the resolution and the color space and all the illuminations and all this other stuff. And I've worked out my purchase is down to two TVs. Mm-hmm. Say one of them is a well-known brand of TV, say Samsung, for example. Okay. And the other brand of TV is some unknown brand that I've never heard of.
Right.
Okay. This is where branding comes in. By buying a Samsung TV or LG or all the other wonderful TV manufacturers that we know and love, right? But by buying a branded product, I know that the experience that I will have with that product will be somewhere between, yeah, that's not bad, to, oh my God, this is absolutely friggin' awesome. Right? If I buy the other TV, even if the specs of the product are even wider, yes, I might get a, oh my God, this is an absolutely fantastic piece of kit. Or it might be, oh my God, what an absolute piece of crap.
Right.
So that variance is removed or is reduced, I should say. Right. And to take it further, there's also the issue of the peer review. Okay. Mm-hmm. So supposing it's 1 year and 1 day later. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the warranty of the TV has expired.
Right.
And it's blown up. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm on the phone. You and I are having a chat. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mike, I had a real problem. You know that TV I bought last year? It exploded, died. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, G, what happened? I feel really sorry for you. And if I bought the Samsung one, you'd say, oh, wow, that's really out of order. You did everything right. Poor you. You've been a victim here, right? What can they do? This is disgusting from Samsung to do that, right? Now, if I'd bought the unknown brand, you'd say, well, see, if you're going to buy this unknown piece of crap, it's going to happen, isn't it?
Right.
So I'm to blame.
Correct.
Again, so this is the brand reducing the variance so that the customer experience viability of suckiness is removed from the equation.
Yeah, and that's
I want to have suckiness as a word that exists in the lexicon. That's my goal.
You're submitting it into the record, and the court accepts.
Thank you.
So no, but I think that your point about this was a good conversation around value, because often the question that I get in my business coaching and when I'm speaking to entrepreneurs or small business owners is, where do I start with value? And how do I establish value? And then I often give people the same answer. Why do people currently buy from you? Do you understand why they buy from you? Really, the answer to the method to answering these questions in business is to actually ask more questions. Why do you buy from me? Why have you bought from me more than once? Would you refer me out to somebody else? If the answer is no,
what a really good question is.
What's that?
A really good question is, when we do this discovery stuff with onboarding any new client, we go through this discovery process, right? Mm-hmm. One question that we always ask when we speak to customers that they're sort of slightly taken aback about, but can often reveal a lot of intel about the mindset of the customer. The question is, what nearly stopped you from buying? Mm-hmm. What nearly lost us the sale?
Right. Yes,
and they don't ask these questions. because they want shills, right? Mm-hmm. They want people to say, oh, they were great. You know, the person on the end of the phone was light and bubbly, and we had a great time. And the product was available in blue and pink, and I wanted those colors, or it was available in these sizes, and that was very important, or whatever that sort of stuff is. Great, wonderful. Right. You know, you can get some intel from all of that, yes, but you know you're not on an island, right? There are other competitors existing in your space, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at it pragmatically and objectively, there are people who buy from the competition. Mm-hmm. You know, sorry to tell you, Mr. Business Owner, but there are people who do not buy from you.
That's right.
And are happy about not buying from you.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting because it's like the question I get silence on oftentimes when I'm doing my initial business coaching discovery too is, well, what makes you special? And then I get a list of features that they offer. And it's like, well, that doesn't make you special. Okay,
it's
like
table stakes.
Yeah,
it's table stakes. Everybody offers that. You know, oh, we've got great customer service. Well, so was everybody. They all purport to offer great customer service. Nobody sets out to say, you know what, we're going to be different by offering absolutely crap customer service. No one does that. They all think they're trying to do the best they can. Everybody.
Why do people, in your mind, have a hard time answering the purpose question? Like what purpose do you serve in the marketplace?
Because there's a number of different reasons, but I think one of them is by defining who you are, you're automatically defining who you're not. And people are scared to alienate a proportion of their customer base, even if those people are not right for the product or service that's being sold.
Right. This is one of the immutable laws of marketing. Right there. One of the 22 immutable laws of marketing, right? Al Ries, Jack Trout, in their book, what they write is that basically they write, you can't win every war, right? Like you can't have, you can re-enter a demographic at a later time after you've established yourself. It's the exact thing that Pepsi did. Coke was around and it was established. People drank it. Then they had the older generation on lockdown. Pepsi came in. They hired Michael Jackson commercials. They brought in all these young, you know, superstars at the time to really bolster like a younger generation drinking cola. And they killed that market. And then they started bringing in celebrities that were older talking about drinking Pepsi later. And then they were able to backdoor a part of Coca-Cola's market that they had on Coke. So it's not just about Warren Buffett, who's a stakeholder in Coca-Cola drinking his Coca-Cola. It's everyone in his generation drank Coca-Cola. And so Pepsi knew automatically that they weren't going to come in and just displace, you know, Coke as the cola of choice. And so they went after a younger target market and they did it successfully. And that's where they spent their money and turned their attention. And they understood their purpose in the market. Their purpose was to engage a younger generation who didn't feel connected to to Coca-Cola because they weren't born in that generation with their product. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I'm not sure I would have gone in the cola market. But they did successfully. And there's been competitors that have come and gone in the cola market. They don't last long, but those two mainstays, because they chose their position and they were willing. The law was called the law of sacrifice. Okay. It was you're sacrificing one demographic essentially to focus on your main primary demographic that can engage in that wants your service. And you could, it doesn't mean that you can't come back to it later, but you're sacrificing one piece of the pie essentially for one that actually will become your bread and butter.
I think it's very rare and maybe elusive where a player has come into the market and attacked the incumbent head on using the same value proposition as the incumbent.
Yeah,
I mean it's never going to work, right?
Yeah, agreed.
You know, it doesn't matter how deep my pocket. Supposing I'm the world's first trillionaire, okay, and I want to start a cola company. I'm never going to usurp Coke. Never going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you were doing an alternative cola drink with sustainable sourced ingredients or naturally aspirated, or some kind of differentiation like that, then you've got a chance. Then you've got an opportunity, right? But trying to out Coke, that's not a war I want to play.
No.
No way.
No, it's not. Gee, we've been talking for an hour, so we're bumping up against time, and it's very rare that I get to engage with someone who we can kind of really dive deep into these things. But I want to have you back on the show because there's a lot of other things that we didn't get to touch on that I would like to. So if you're willing to come back on, I'd love to have you back on.
My pleasure. Love to.
But where can our audience find you, or your company, Kexino, and reach out if they're interested in engaging you?
From the agency, Kexino is Kexino, so that's kexino.com. If you want to get a hold of me, probably the easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and whatever else. I mean, if you want, you can mail me. My name is G Ranasinha. If you mail me g@ranasinha.com, you'll get hold of me. But LinkedIn is probably the easiest and best. I try to be active on LinkedIn at least a couple of times a week. Right. I don't often attain to that, but that's the goal. You have to put a goal right before you can say anything else. But yeah, and let's have a chat. Right, it doesn't have to result in anything. If I can help, if I can be a soundboard, offer advice, make recommendations. That's what it's all about, right? Because, at the end of the day, I'm a small business myself. So, we've got to watch each other's backs. Yeah,
that's really it. And kind of what we learned from the pandemic, which is that having these engagements and, they work out. And so, G, your advice has been spot on. I think your ability to critically think through a such scenario is obviously filters to what you do in your firm. And if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this, I'm going to tell you that the things that G said today are exceedingly rare in marketing firms. There's not this level of detail paid to really a holistic approach to your business. Now, there are people out there who say it, but there has to be a business, a strategic business component to a marketing firm. And if there's not, then even if you have a strategy to deploy, it's going to probably increase leads. But then after you get the leads, what happens, right? So there needs to be bridges, there needs to be connections made. And as a business owner, you need to fundamentally understand how your whole ecosystem works to really solidify your business. Otherwise, you're just you have a job and you don't really have a business. So, G, thank you for coming on today. Appreciate your time, and can't wait to have you back because there are a bunch of things that I would like to nail down on value more. And I want to talk about how small business owners can really focus on scaling their business. So we've kind of talked about a lot of the beginning stages of marketing and positioning today, but when you come back, I'd like to talk about scaling.
We'd love to. Thanks for the kind words, Micah. I do appreciate it. And I'd love to come back.
Yeah, awesome. You're the best. Awesome. All right, folks. So remember that according to G, you need to start with value. Don't worry so much about how you're priced. Worry about, is your business going to be generating the value in the marketplace that will get people to want to become fans of yours and not just customers, because fans continue to buy. Customers could be one and done. That's part of what I got out of the conversation today. But there's so much more that we talked about. So remember, use your common sense in your business and your business will grow. But for now, we're out of here.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Common Sense Show, hosted by Micah Logan. The producer for The Common Sense Show is Paul Logan. To reach out to Micah and The Common Sense Show, talk to us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search The Common Sense Show. And if you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to rate and or review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thank you for listening.